No, we're going to change up the way we're doing things. The way I'm doing it, the way I'm hosting these things. So I don't have any handwritten notes. So if what I'm going to try to do goes to hell, just ignore everything I say, because I'm going to lie about a lot of stuff so that you guys think I know what I'm talking about when I have zero idea, because I have nothing written down.
You mean you haven't been doing that already? Oh.
What, just winging a prayer? I've been at least writing stuff down. But, all right, so here we go. Hopefully everybody can still hear me. So the way this works is almost like a PowerPoint. It's not PowerPoint, but it's going to work that way. I cannot see everybody. Once we start talking, if we have a discussion, I can just easily switch back to me so that everybody can see me face to face while we talk. So we're going to get into Article 3. We're moving along pretty good. Now that we got done with Article 1, we're actually getting through each article with the exception of the impeachment, because that took a whole nother day. We're getting through each article in about a day. So hopefully we're going to get through Article 3 today. I don't see any reason why we won't. We'll be able to move on to Article 4 and then Article 5. So since we're at Article 3, new article, we'll just do a quick recap of what we've done so far. We started out with Article. What's
Isn't
that?
it fancy, guys?
We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think it's all right. I think it's all right. I feel good about it, but I was kind of rushing at the end here. We started with Article 1. Obviously, that was the legislative branch. Legislative branch, the things that it gives the power to, it sets up Congress for us, right? Sole power over lawmaking, controls the purse. They're allowed to raise funds for the country through taxes or whatever. They have the sole power to do that, and they control the money going out. They're responsible for impeachments, approve any treaties, they declare war, approve presidential appointments, and general oversight over the executive branch. Questions on, everybody's pretty clear on the legislative branch? Nobody's come up with any questions? Nothing we need to talk about?
Nope.
Right on. So Article 2, we just went over, which establishes the executive branch. That carries out, the executive branch is in charge of carrying out and enforcing the laws of the United States. They establish the duties of the president and the vice president. They give authority of commander in chief over the military to the president. They establish qualifications to be elected to the executive office, and establish a requirement that they must address Congress at least once a year there for the State of the Union. Questions on the executive branch? Anything we need to touch base on? Obviously, we spent all last week on the impeachment. Does anybody come up with anything on the impeachment they want to talk about?
I had a quick question on that. The requirement for the State of the Union. So is that a just formality, like when the Speaker of the House has to do an official invitation to the president for the State of the Union?
No, he is required by the Constitution to give a State of the Union. If you remember, they were given for quite a while in writing. I guess it is a formality. Well, I guess the president has to be invited, I guess, right? I mean, if they don't invite him to I don't know how that works. But if they didn't disinvite Trump, I don't think they're ever going to disinvite anybody.
Well, I just remember a couple of years ago, there was rumor that Pelosi was going to
that's what she
send an invitation.
That's what she said. But I don't think it's ever been done.
Okay, I just wanted to get some clarity.
Anybody know? Jeff, do you know what happens if they don't invite him? Does anybody know?
No idea.
It's just, I don't think it's ever been done. I mean,
well, wouldn't he just put it in writing?
He could, and that's the way it went for a long time. They went, it was put in writing. So it doesn't say that he has to go in front of them. All it says is he has to deliver that State of the Union. So it could be in writing. I guess if they really didn't invite him and it was a big deal, he could just do it in writing.
He could do it on Twitter.
And if it's Trump, he could just do it on Twitter. Correct.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, we're going to get into Article 3 today, which is going to establish a judicial branch. I will be honest. This is the one that I understand it, but it was the one that I knew the least about. I guess probably Article 1, when it comes to the articles, I knew the most about. 2 was okay, but 3 is the one where I didn't understand a lot about it. I think I got a pretty good handle on it now. So basically what the judicial branch is going to be tasked with is interpreting the meaning of the laws, apply the laws to individual cases, and decides if laws violate the Constitution. That's it, nothing else. They're not allowed to write law. They're not allowed to legislate from the bench, although it's been done recently. They're not allowed to bring their own cases. Cases need to be brought to them. They're not allowed to see something happen and decide that they're going to bring, that they're going to hear a case that doesn't exist. This is solely their job right here. So moving into today's discussion, obviously we're going to talk about Article 3. I hope we're going to get through it. 808. I don't think there's any reason why we shouldn't. I will read the entire section and then we'll break it down, just as we've always been. All right. Everybody see that all right? Because I am having trouble seeing it. There we go.
That's good.
Yep.
That's good.
So what section 1 says is that the judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. The judges, both of the Supreme and inferior courts, shall hold their offices during good behavior and shall, at stated times, receive for their services a compensation which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office. Pretty straightforward. I think, oh boy, this is it. Here we go, Renee. Let's see if this works. So I think to understand the power that the Supreme Court has, you need to know what Marbury versus Madison established in 1803. It's a landmark case. The Supreme Court decided it, so it's still in force today. We're going to see, oh, this isn't looking good. So this is a video. I was having trouble getting videos to run. Luckily, I know just enough about Marbury versus Madison that if this doesn't work, we'll be able to talk about it still with any luck. So it's not going to work. God dang, Renee. I thought you were going to fix this, Renee.
Hey, Jim.
I didn't stop over.
Are you able to run stuff on Facebook without them telling you you can't do this because it's not your property?
This isn't
Like
Facebook.
they're doing with music?
Well, and that was my worry. That was my worry. Although it is from YouTube. I mean, I'm not right. But you're using your music for commercial purposes, yeah?
Now, if you try and tag, let's put it this way, I tagged or I put the kids in a video around Thanksgiving because they were playing Just Dance, and it got flagged for copyright infringement.
Yeah, but you know, it's coming. It's coming from YouTube. History put it on YouTube, and YouTube is powering this. So,
yeah, Mike, you created that.
Right.
You created the video and posted it. He didn't create this.
Right.
This
So,
is Zoom
through the
anyway,
fair-
so
the-
it should
The
be
Fair
all right.
Use Act, he's allowed to use it for educational purposes.
Okay. Just wasn't
Yes,
sure.
and I can try to play this on mine and share my video. And
yeah, try that real quick because they
Yep.
explain it a whole lot easier and better than I can. If you can get that running, that would be fantastic.
Yep. Let me get it over there. All right. Okay. Let's share sound.
If you put YouTube on there, Marbury versus Madison, it should be the first one to
Yep,
pop up.
I got it.
All right, great.
Is this it?
Yep. Let me see.
Face that is usually
Hang on a
covered by her
second. This is
phone
an ad,
has
sorry.
finally made an appearance.
Skip ads.
Some scholars have called it the most important case in the history of the Supreme Court. What started out as a minor matter about federal jobs turned into a legal decision that resonates today. You want legal drama? You got it. This is the story of Marbury versus Madison. In 1800, Thomas Jefferson defeated John Adams in the presidential election. Just before he left office, Adams appointed a bunch of judges from his Federalist Party to the District of Columbia courts. These appointments were approved by the Senate and signed by the president. Great, but there was a holdup. The last step before these judges could take office was a commission, a formal piece of paper that said essentially, this is their job and these guys are good to go. These commissions hadn't been delivered yet, which meant the judges couldn't start their jobs yet. And when President Jefferson took office in March of 1801, he said, not so fast on those commissions. He had his Secretary of State, James Madison, keep them from being delivered. One of those prospective judges was named William Marbury, a Federalist Party member from Maryland. Marbury said, "No fair, I want my judge job," and he brought the case to the Supreme Court. Marbury wanted the court to issue a writ of mandamus. That's legalese for a court order. Marbury wanted the court to order Madison to show why he couldn't get his commission. In 1803, Supreme Court Chief Justice John Marshall himself, a Federalist appointed by John Adams, ruled on the case of Marbury versus Madison. He saw this as an opportunity to establish some important legal precedents, decisions that extended way beyond whether or not Marbury got his job. First, Marshall ruled that Marbury had the right to receive his commission. So that means I get my judge job, right? Relax, Marbury. Marshall also ruled that Marbury had a right to remedy, to have his wrong righted. Okay, so I get my job. Yeah, not so, relax, Marbury, chill out, buddy. There was a third part to Marshall's decision, and this is what made Marbury versus Madison so important. Marshall ruled that the Supreme Court didn't have the power to make Madison hand over Marbury's commission. So wait, what? In making his ruling, Justice Marshall had the court rule on itself. Marshall brought up the Judiciary Act of 1789. This was a law that gave the Supreme Court the power to rule in cases just like this. But Marshall ruled that Section 13 of this law violated the Constitution because it gave the court powers the Constitution said it shouldn't have. Long story short, it wasn't the Supreme Court's place to rule in a decision like this. In striking down the Judiciary Act of 1789, Marshall also struck a blow against the authority of Congress. The Constitution, as Marshall put it, was the supreme law of the land. Whenever Congress and the Constitution were in conflict, the Supreme Court would turn to the Constitution. This is called judicial review, and it's been an important function of the Supreme Court ever since. In relinquishing the power it was granted in 1789, the Supreme Court defined its emerging role for the young nation. The court staked out its claim as a branch of government equal to and independent of Congress and the executive branch. All that from a case about someone's paperwork not getting delivered.
Young people.
All right, so everybody understand that? Everybody understand this is what established judicial review with the Supreme Court. Now there's proponents for judicial review and opponents against it, thinking that it gives the Supreme Court too much power. But really, I mean, judicial review is, that's what allows the Supreme Court to look at things the states are doing, to look at things from a constitutional standpoint, decide whether something is constitutional or it's not constitutional. So ever since 1803, it has been in force, and that is how the Supreme Court basically operates today because of that case. Questions on that? I mean, does everybody kind of understand Marbury versus Madison, why it's important? Anybody got anything?
I would think that this probably be something that some of the states will look into as far as the election, their election laws. No?
Well, and that's where I get a little confused on that, because I would think that judicial review, I mean, I would think that the Supreme Court could look at this. Maybe it's just because of the way it was brought up to the Supreme Court.
I
would have to.
I mean, it was mentioned. I mean, not bringing politics into it, but Trump did, asked to have it challenged and to go under judicial review, but the Supreme Court decided to not look at it, right?
Yeah, but there was a problem with the way it was presented.
Yeah, they claimed it didn't have standing, which is different from it not being a valid claim.
Correct, and that's what happened with Texas. When Texas sued Georgia, same thing. The way that they had phrased it and the way they brought it forward, the Supreme Court said, look, you don't have standing to dictate how another state runs its elections. It was wording. I mean, had they worded it different, had they worded it more that it was a violation of the U.S. Constitution, I think they would have been okay. But they didn't, and that's why it got shot down.
So it's just the lack of the presentation was just bad. Otherwise, they probably could have looked at it if they would have done a better job at presenting their cases.
Correct. They can only rule on what's presented to them, So
understand. Okay.
All right, so we'll break it down a little bit now. So judicial power is vested in one Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court is basically comes down to state power versus national power. Madison argued for the one Supreme Court. He felt that the state should not have a stake in making national decisions. Obviously, everybody agreed with Madison, and it got into the Constitution. Now, with that said, Congress is still left with considerable power, right? They can, and if you remember back in Article 1, they can establish the lower courts, the jurisdiction of those lower courts, the number of justices. Now, since 1869, we have been at 9. There's talk now that they want to pack the court, that they want to add justices because of what they perceive to be being wronged by the last administration. However, I mean, everything the last administration did was constitutional. Every single opening they have, and there's nothing in the Constitution that says you can't fill an opening. If he would have had an opening in 30 days, he could move to appoint somebody. 5 days out, a day out. You know, if somebody would have died a day before, he can still make that appointment. It's obviously up to Congress to okay that appointment, but so they didn't do anything wrong, but there's talk that they're going to try to stack the court. I hope they don't. I hope they leave it at 9. Like I said, it's been at 9 since 1869. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that they have to have 9 or that they had 6 for a long time. There's nothing that says they can't have 11, can't have 10, you know, whatever it may be. Questions on this part? On the first part there, any discussion, anything? Nothing? All right. Somebody?
I'm just thinking about the upcoming stacking potential here.
Well, you know, and I think one of the things we got going, well, when I say we, I mean, one of the things that the Constitution has going for it is there are some moderate Democrats there that are probably going to get in the way of a lot of the more progressive ideas. Though I don't know. I don't know if the stacking would go through. I don't know if they would. I don't know. I don't know if they would. Maybe, I guess they would probably try it. I guess we'll have to wait.
How is that decided? Is that majority, or is it like 2/3, or as far as stacking the courts?
We would have to go back to Article 1, Section 8. I think Clause 1. Was it 1? No, not 1.
Well, wouldn't it just be a majority? Because isn't that one of the reasons why they're talking about killing the filibuster so that they don't have to have 60 votes?
Well, yeah, if they kill the filibuster, that is right. Then I guess it would be a simple majority then at that point. I'm just trying to see. Let's see here. God, I can't remember. I can look. Or maybe somebody can look it up for me while I'm talking. I just can't find it right now.
No biggie.
Well, no, because I want to know too. But yeah, without the filibuster, I think it would be a simple majority at that point.
I just see to constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court, Section 8, Clause
Yeah, but
9,
It was in the.
Clause what?
Article 1, Section 8, Clause 9, I think. But it just mentions inferior.
No, there is on there. I mean, they do have the power. Well, maybe that just falls under to constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. I don't know, Chris. I'll have to look into that. Find that answer for sure, man. I'm not sure.
The part about treaties and needing 2/3. I feel like there was a part in that because I brought it up and I remember somebody talking about there was a colon there and it separated the 2 clauses. If you remember where the
Semicolon on, yeah, that sounds familiar. Well, we can keep going.
Keep an eye out for it. I'll take a look.
We'll
then,
look.
Yeah, and Sandy and Kevin, I think that is a yes on the Y13. It's just like give them majority. That's a personal opinion, not trying to get political, but that is my take.
What's that?
Sandy and Kevin asked why 13 justices? Is it just to get a number where the Democrats have a majority? So.
Well, I don't think that's political at all. They've made that very clear that that's their.
It's more rhetorical than political.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's very clear. That's what they're looking to do. And I think the moderate Democrats will probably stop that. I mean, because it's one of those things, man. I mean, be careful what you wish for, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, what you do, what the precedents you set can be used against you. I don't know. I could spend all day looking for this. If somebody finds it, let me know. If not, Chris, I'll find it, and I'll get back to you on that. All right. So moving on from the inferior courts. So the federal court structure, actually, those of you that have, I forgot all about this. Those of you that have the rugged Constitution, the court structure is on page 83. You can go and look at it there. But basically the court structure, so everything starts in the district, well, almost everything starts in the district courts. And I don't know if I need to read all this to you. You guys can look at it. It's the lowest level. There's 94 judicial districts in 50 states. They have original jurisdiction over most cases because crimes, and we're going to get to this part in the Constitution where it actually spells out that crimes need the original jurisdiction, with few exceptions, is going to be in the state that the crime happened. So that is why federal crimes will always start in the district courts. From there, it can go to the courts of appeal. And we'll talk about this further on also. If you don't get satisfaction in the courts of appeal, you can appeal to the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court gets, I don't even know how many cases sent to them a year, but they only hear about 80. So what they do in a lot of those is send them right back down to the U.S. courts of appeal, and that's the decision. Whatever the courts of appeal, U.S. Court of Appeal says, then that's where it ends. So most of the cases end with the U.S. Court of Appeals. So obviously Supreme Court's atop, and Supreme Court is binding over all 50 states. So when you get these crazy, out there out in California, like the Ninth Circuit, when they rule on something out there, and it's absolutely insane, it only applies to their circuit, right? Other districts, other circuits can refer to that ruling, but it's not binding to any other district. Not until the Supreme Court gets a hold of it and decides that it's good for the entire country. There we go. So if you remember, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it, I'm only going to talk about the structure because Article 1, Section 8, Clause 9, that is what gives Congress the power to set up lower courts. And we talked in depth about that. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 9, and so we're not going to rehash that. If you need to talk about it again, we can either after or questions or whatever. But I don't think we need to rehash it right now. Moving on, we got good behavior, which is even back then was a thing. It was a thing that needed to be discussed. So what they wanted, obviously, were the judges to be protected from being removed by Congress. They didn't want to be beholden to anybody. They don't want to be beholden to the president. They didn't want to be beholden to Congress. So once they're there, they're there. Now, nowhere in the Constitution does it say life, right? All it says is under good behavior. So Judicial Council's Reform and Judicial Conduct and Disability Act of 1980, the best that they can do right now is suspend case assignments for judges that are mentally or physically unable to discharge their duties or engaged in inappropriate conduct. They cannot be removed. But what they can do now is at least stop them from getting cases until they either get impeached or whatever problem they're having gets resolved.
Did something in particular happen around that time that resulted in this Reform Act?
Yeah, you know what, where are we here? Let me look it up real quick. I'm sure there was, because they don't just pass laws for no reason. Where are we? Where it's section 1. Good behavior. Just give me 1 second. I'm almost there. Good behavior clause. So let's see. Well, I don't know the answer to that because I don't see, usually they'll have whatever drove that. There must have been something that drove it. They're not just going to take it up for no reason.
Yeah, let me, I'm poking here.
While you're looking that up, I did find here on the constitutioncenter.org site, answer to, as far as stacking the courts, under the Constitution, the number of Supreme Court justices is not fixed and Congress can change it by passing an act, and that is then signed by the president. Article 3, Section 1 starts with a broad direction to Congress to establish the court system. The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. And as far as passing an act, that's just simple majority from the House and the Senate.
Yep. All right, there it is. And you know, you're not going to get any pushback from a Democratic president when he's, given something from a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate. So if they decide to go
Correct.
forward with this, it looks like it's probably going to happen, but
Well,
I
The one,
still
thing the one thing they have to overcome is precedent, right?
well, they do, because
And the only time they ever had more than 9 on the court.
been at 9 since 1869. I mean, do they want to open this can of worms? Because they're not going to be in power forever.
The only reason that 9 is because it was at 10 during the Civil War. And because they opened up another court, another district court, a 10th district. And after the Civil War, they got rid of the 10th district and they went back to 9. That's why there's 9 Supreme Court justices. There's 9 districts.
Right. Yeah, and each one handles, each one's assigned to a district that handles emergency hearings, things like that.
Right. So if they wanted to add 2 or 4 more, wouldn't that by relation mean they have to add 2 or 4 more
I
districts?
don't believe it does. There's nothing in there that says that. I think they can change it anytime they want to change it.
Yeah. Precedent.
Because the camera's on.
And you would think that they would need to keep an odd number with an even
Well,
number,
right.
and they have a tie. Who breaks that tie? I mean,
And
would you
that
still have the Supreme Court justice?
That I don't
Uh,
know, because we'd never, I mean, maybe the chief, I don't know. I'm just throwing this out there. I have no idea. Maybe the Chief Justice just basically doesn't rule on anything unless there's a tie at that point. But
No, I think that's not. I think I kind of remember after Alito, not Alito, one that passed away back a couple years ago.
Scalia.
Scalia, when he passed away, that it was such a long vacancy. They had a lot of 4-4 ties because it was split
well,
down.
they did.
And that's
So-
the way it is. It just stays that way. There's no decision.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. If they can add, can the next administration pass an act and have the president sign to subtract it?
Sure. They can set the, I mean, if they want to add and they make it 14, you get a Republican president in there with a Republican House and Senate, and we can make it 3.
Yeah, but there's no way to remove them. The only way
Yeah,
you can remove them is by not filling a vacancy.
Oh, well, that's true.
How do you decide which ones go, though?
Well, no,
Yeah.
I don't, you know what? No, right. I don't even know what I was thinking there. You can't
You
just,
can't.
Yeah. It can only get bigger. It
Under
can't
good
get smaller.
No,
I
no,
mean,
no.
they could,
Somebody
but-
dies.
That's not true.
well, I
Yeah.
guess they could, I guess what the thing, they could pass the act to make it 3. And then at that
And
point, any
you wait
vacancies
for the
pop
next
up
6.
or not, it's by attrition, right?
Right.
So
The
any
next 6 to
vacancy
die.
then we just don't fill it.
It'd be
But
three RGBs or 3 RBGs up there.
yeah, that would, well, really.
There was a time, back constitutioncenter.org saying in early 1837, Andrew Jackson was able to add 2 additional justices after Congress expanded the number of federal circuit court districts. Under different circumstances, Congress created the 10th Circuit in 1863 during the Civil War, and the court briefly had 10 justices. Congress then passed legislation in 1866 to reduce the court to 7 justices. That only lasted until 1869, when a new Judiciary Act sponsored by Senator Trumbull put the number back to 9 justices, with 6 required at a sitting to form a quorum. Ulysses S. Grant eventually signed that legislation and nominated William Strong and Joseph Bradley to the newly restored seat. So there was a time where, they had it up and then they took it back down.
Yeah, it started at 6.
But we've been here since 1869. So I just can't believe they're going to want to, well, I don't know. I guess maybe they will.
Yeah, you can't.
No, yeah,
Okay.
right. I don't know. We'll see what happens, man. I mean,
Well, FDR tried. FDR was going to add justices, and just about the time when he was getting all the political muscle together to do it, somebody died, and he was able to appoint somebody, and it kind of made it a moot point. He never ended up adding anybody.
I wonder what his support was. How did they have a super majority there? I mean, did they?
Yeah.
Was he running everything?
Yeah, he was running every FDR. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Nothing?
I will continue researching why, if something happened in 1980 or thereabouts that would have,
Yeah, well, something had to happen. I mean, they're not.
Yeah. So I'll see what I can find and report back.
Yeah, they're not just gonna just come up with an act for no reason at all.
Right.
All right, so moving on to compensation. So the Declaration of Independence, one of the grievances that they actually had listed was that King has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their office and the amount and payment of their salaries. So the reason, obviously, that their compensation is set is because, again, we don't want them beholden on anybody, right? We don't want Congress being able to say, look, man, we don't like the way you ruled here, so we're going to knock your pay down by 20%. So it's just another protection for them. I know there's talk, and I didn't look too far into it. Obviously, there's got to be cost of living. I mean, because you can't, some of these judges have been on it for however, 30 years. Clearly, I can't imagine they're being paid the same thing that they were 30 years ago.
I think it just means it can't be diminished. It can't be.
Well, no, and they cannot be given a pay raise either, because then you're going to be ruling in hopes that you're rewarded. You know what I mean?
But it doesn't say that.
It said, which shall not be diminished during their continuance in office.
And that's what I'm looking at here. There was, and I think it can't be raised. And that's what I'm talking about with cost of living. I think there is, Judge challenge to repeal the cost of living.
It's interesting too that it's at stated times they receive compensation. So twice a year.
District court fund. Hold on. I'm reading.
I mean, maybe it is when the COLA rises or changes. Maybe they do get a.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, the cost of living is so high in DC. You're trying to get paid.
Yeah, I'm trying to read up on this COLA thing, man, but it is a long. Hey, Renee, if you want to look real quick and just see what the outcome was, there's two about the cost of living where it got denied. The last one was Williams versus United States 2002. But it is long, man, and I'm not able to find right now how they ruled.
So
Yeah, listen, I'm almost positive I read in there that, I know it says diminished, but I thought I saw somewhere in there, and it makes sense to me that they can't be given a raise. Because like I said, then you got to worry about them.
Wow. So in 2014, Washington Post reported that federal judges in cost of living suit collect 14% raise after years of legal battles. So that's during the 90s, as the size of congressional paychecks became a political issue, lawmakers canceled 4 automatic cost of living bumps for themselves and the judiciary.
They did 95, 96, 7, and 99.
Yep. And then
So
You're
it was
saying-
ruled- so they
Saying
did.
the judges didn't get a raise for 14 years. I'll bet you when that finally passed, I guarantee that was retroactive and they got a big
Mhm.
chunk.
Well, that's what she said, 14%, right?
Yep.
Man, I wish I could get a 14% raise. Holy shit.
Oh, shit.
I'd settle for $14.
Be more than I have in my checking account.
Let's see, what did you put in the chat there, Alicia?
I just found compensation since 1968.
Yeah.
According to CNBC, associate justice, well, this is associate justice on the Supreme Court makes $255,000. These salaries usually increase by $2,000 to $3,000 each year. A seat on the
probably a
court
cost
comes
of
with some
living.
desirable benefits.
So it's like a 1% increase.
All right, so
I mean-
it looks like then that they were probably fighting this since 2002,
So
and then
what,
14, they finally resolved it, right?
so what Alicia sent, there is a footnote down here that said these salary levels, let me find the third one. The third one was from 1987, and it said these salary levels reflect 2 separate adjustments. So first, Public Law number 99-500 406 provided a 3% cost of living adjustment for the judiciary as of January 1st, bringing the salaries to what they were listed there. Then on January 5th of 87, Reagan recommended to Congress further adjustment for judges and justices and other executive level officers under the Federal Salary Act of 1967. So it sounds like it generally follows the cost of living.
All right.
In most of these notes, it says, but then sometimes they're bumped.
All right, so this is interesting, and I'm sure it's been dealt with. It's probably been dealt with since in case law, but at the Constitutional Convention, I'm just going to read it. The issue at the Constitutional Convention was whether judges' salaries, like the president's, should be fixed during their tenures or whether Congress could allow for increases. The convention considered James Madison's resolution that judges received fixed compensation for their services in which no increase or diminishment shall be made. When Governor Morris moved to strike no increase, Madison objected that the judges would fall under the blandishments of legislatures, which could offer them raises, which maybe that's what I was reading. But Morris retorted that the fluctuations in the value of money, the increase in judicial business, and the evolving style of living might create a necessity for raising judges' salaries. On the motion to strike the phrase, Morris, supported by Benjamin Franklin, won. Congress may not reduce judges' salaries, but it may increase them. So I guess they choose not to, or if they do, they do it through a cost of living. And I just don't know if there's been anything since then that has limited the increase to cost of living, where it's a set amount each year. It just doesn't make sense to me that Congress could, based on how somebody rules, decide to give them a raise. I mean, it seems to me that that's the same as diminishing their salary because you don't agree with the way they ruled.
Or are you saying that they get paid differently? Don't they all get paid the same amount?
I don't know. I would imagine the Chief Justice probably makes a little more, huh?
The salary schedule showed that, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. maybe the longer you've been on the court, you make more? Or does somebody that's been there 10 years
I
make
don't
the
know.
same
I don't,
guy?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I mean,
New gal.
everybody's doing the same job until the chief justice. So
Right.
I think it's probably
Does he-
set. There's
does he
probably
get-
justice and chief justice. I would
Does the
guess.
chief justice, does he get a bonus for doing impeachment?
Uh,
That's like extra work. I mean, that's,
But
it goes-
Hazardous duty pay.
Not,
teacher
not
wouldn't
for
even-
Roberts.
a teacher wouldn't even.
You know what? You know what? The answer to that is clearly no, or Roberts would not have recused himself from this thing.
That's true.
So, all right. So what are we at? We're 8:43. So moving on here. Hopefully we can get done. Uh-oh. I see my first. Oh, there's section 2. Thank God. Woo! Got a little nervous there. All right. So section 2. Section 2 covers trial by jury, original jurisdiction, and jury trials. I'll just read it. And there was some here that was changed. And we could talk by the 11th Amendment, I believe it was. So the judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution, the laws on the United States and treaties made or which shall be made under the authority, to all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, to all cases of basically the high seas. How do you say that? Admiralty? Yeah.
Admiralty.
And maritime jurisdiction. There
That's
we
the
go.
Coast Guard guy.
Yeah, exactly. God. Chris. To controversies,
All right,
to
I
which
was looking
the United
something up.
States shall be a party to controversies between 2 or more states.
Admiralty.
Thank you, Chris. Between a state and citizens of another state. Between citizens of different states. Between citizens of the same state claiming lands under grants of different states, and between a state and the citizen thereof, and foreign states, citizens and subjects. Now, the footnotes there, those were modified by the 11th Amendment. They're minor adjustments, and we'll talk about those. Second clause in that is in all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers and consuls, and those in which a state shall be party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. In all other cases before mentioned, the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction, both as to law and fact, with such exceptions and under such regulations as the Congress shall make. The trial of all crimes, except in cases of impeachment, shall be by jury, and such trial shall be held in the state where the said crimes shall have been committed. But when not committed within any state, the trial shall be at such place or places as the Congress may by law have directed. So we get into clause-
Jen Kilby, can you mute yourself?
What's that?
Just did.
All right. So the first clause here, I don't need to read it again, I guess. But here it is. The judicial power shall extend to all cases in law and equity arising under the Constitution. So we'll talk about judicial power first. I'm not going to hit every single one. Some of them are pretty self-explanatory. So the federal court's jurisdiction covers interpreting the Constitution, all laws passed by Congress, the United States' rights, responsibility, and treaties with other nations, disputes between states, between citizens of different states, and between states and the federal government. Every case must be brought. They cannot bring their own cases, regardless of whether they feel something is unconstitutional or not. So Supreme Court's too busy right now probably to just be sitting back and looking at every single thing that happens in the states to just decide they want to bring their own cases. But it's important to realize that their jurisdiction is limited. They can't see something happening and decide that they're going to go ahead and rule on it without it being brought to them.
Like when a case is being dismissed and the judge says, I don't think this case should be dismissed.
Well, the judge is the one who would have to dismiss it. I mean, they can make a motion to dismiss, but
I guess I'm referring to the General Flynn case where the judge didn't want to give up on him. And the prosecution was saying, we're dismissing this case. We're giving it up.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've never seen that before. When the prosecution comes and says, we don't have a case, we're bound out of this thing. the judge always just dismisses the case. I mean, for lack of prosecution. So, you know, and I don't know enough about Flynn's case. I remember when it happened, I was pissed off, but I don't know enough about it to even speak on it right now.
Okay.
Well, it may have gone all the way to the Supreme Court had he not been pardoned.
Oh, I think
No,
it eventually.
I think that judge got in trouble with the judiciary somewhere. He got
got censured
or something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did. But
for
he
making
still wasn't going to
himself part of
back
the group.
down.
Yeah, he didn't want to back down. That's true.
So it may have gone to the Supreme Court had it gone on.
Well, I think if he'd gone to the next level, they would have said he doesn't have standing because he had no standing to.
Well, there was no
Right.
prosecution.
He's not a prosecutor, right?
That's correct.
All right, so moving on to interstate disputes. So this was a mess here. So the reason they have the interstate disputes that the Supreme Court's going to have jurisdiction over those is because under Article 9 of the Articles of Confederation, it was a mess. It worked for them, but it was a mess. It was convoluted. Congress basically would name 39 individuals, 3 from each state at the time, as potential commissioners to resolve the dispute. From there, the involved states would then take turns striking names off the list until they were down to 13. From that list, 7 or 9 would be drawn at random, and they would be the ones that would decide, almost like for the sake of argument, almost like a jury for whatever dispute the states were having. When we wrote the Constitution, they decided this was a mess, and
Yeah.
they just gave it to the Supreme Court and said, look, you're going to deal with any disputes between states from this point on. So that's where that came from. I just thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, what they had to go through during a dispute.
I mean, I like that in some ways. It's like a jury selection where both
Yeah.
sides kind of have a say.
Reminds me of that old game, Red Rover, Red Rover.
Well, I guess, but now, I mean, where would we be now, right? That was 39.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how many states were
75.
back then. I mean, what were we at, 13?
You'd have 150.
150, I mean, yeah.
I mean,
Well,
that
that's a pretty good pool to start with.
would be quite a process.
It gives the states say in what's being decided on interstate law. It's interesting.
Well, it's not law, it's disputes.
You're right. Decisions.
Right. So citizens from other states. So what we have here is, now this is changed. This is one of the things that the 11th Amendment changed. All right. Chisholm versus Georgia. What this was Chisholm, who I think was from South Carolina. I don't remember where he was from, but he basically was going to sue Georgia because he says that Georgia owed him money for goods that were provided during the American Revolution. Georgia basically said, look, you know what? We have sovereign immunity. We're not coming to court. We're not going to pay you. So the courts ruled then 4-1 for Chisholm, reasoning that Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution abrogated the state's sovereign immunity and granted federal courts the affirmative power to hear disputes between private citizens and states. Thus, the state conduct was subject to judicial review. After this happened, there was an uproar. The states demanded the 11th Amendment. And what the 11th Amendment says is, the judicial power of the United States shall not be construed to extend any suit in law or equity commenced or prosecuted against one of the United States by citizens of another state, or by citizens or subjects of any foreign state. So they basically are giving the power back to the states on that. And that's what changed in the
Is it here?
Where are we? Section, are we still in 1? Section, yeah, we're still in 1. So that's what the 11th changed for them. And land grants, the framers knew there were going to be disputes over the Western land, which is why they put this in here. However, there are still ongoing cases recently concerning land, and the Supreme Court has the jurisdiction over any dispute between states concerning land. 1998, there was a dispute between New York and New Jersey over Ellis Island. SCOTUS ultimately ruled in favor of New Jersey on that one. And that was, like I said, that was 1998. So there's still, you know, while the states are pretty well set, I mean, the borders are pretty well set, there's still some things that come up from time to time as the Supreme Court has to rule on. But it was, you know, the framers realized that things were going to keep expanding westward and that there was going to be a need for this. So, and really until before those states were completely staked out, I mean, who do you have rule on it? You know, you would need somebody impartial to rule. So that's why they put that in there. Questions on that, on clause 2? I'm sorry, on where are we at here? I think we just finished up clause 2, right?
Yep.
All right. Did we? Or that was still, I think that was still clause 1, actually. That was clause 1. So clause 2, the trial of all crimes except in cases of impeachment. Now, I feel like that just jumped. Did that just jump on me to clause 3?
Yes.
Mhm.
Did. So clause 2, in cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers, consuls, and those in which the state shall be party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. So what this whole thing is about is giving the Supreme Court original jurisdiction over these cases so that they don't go back to the states. In all cases before mentioned, the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction, meaning that with the exception of cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers or consuls, and those in which a state shall be a party, the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction. All the other crimes, they have appellate jurisdiction. So that means that any other crime that happens has to start in the states. It has to come up through the states, and then the ultimate say on appeal would be the Supreme Court. When you're talking about ambassadors, and why am I not pulling up my original jurisdiction there? When you're talking about ambassadors, other foreign representatives, the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction, which means the cases will go straight to them and they will hear the case. Well, any case can be appealed to the Supreme Court on constitutional grounds. They only hear about 80 per year. Most end with the U.S. Court of Appeals, which is what we talked about, because they are, for the most part, for almost every case, they are an appellate jurisdiction. And there's just a lot that they refuse to hear. They don't have to take any certain case. They can end it with however the U.S. Court of Appeals ruled. But anything involving ambassadors or other foreign representatives goes straight to them at that point. Questions on that? Discussion?
Is there a timeline for when something can be brought to the Supreme Court?
You know, that's a good question. I mean, you've got a right to speedy trial, right? There are timelines all through the legal process where things have to be done. So my guess is yes. I mean, you can't be bringing something up from the 1940s on appeal.
I think you only have a right to speedy trial in a criminal case, though.
You do, but what I'm saying is there are time constraints on every single process.
Yeah, true.
Every single process through court, there are time constraints. So, yeah, I don't know what that would be, but there must be. You must have a certain, almost like a statute of limitations. You know?
Yeah, they can't keep putting you off forever.
Right.
You know where else they have a speedy trial is in the House of Representatives, just saying.
And how about that last sentence that regulations that such as the Congress shall make?
Well, you know, everything, remember though, when you're talking about inferior courts, Congress really makes all the rules there. They can do what they want.
Can Congress change it so that rules can go straight to the Supreme Court as
No.
part of the follow-up?
No, because they would have to amend the Constitution at that point. The Constitution says that they are
Gotcha.
they're an appellate jurisdiction. So
Gotcha.
yeah, they would have to amend the Constitution at that point. Clause 3, the trial of all crimes, except in cases of impeachment, shall be by jury, and such trial shall be held in the state where the said crime shall have been committed, but when not committed within any state, which I don't understand that part. And everything I looked, I couldn't find out where the hell it would be committed if it wasn't within any state, unless it's on the water maybe, or I don't know. The trial shall be at such place or places as the Congress may by law have directed.
Sure.
So,
Jim,
Washington DC is not a state.
well, there you go. I guess that could be. It's not a state.
or
Yeah.
one of the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Puerto
Right,
Rico.
yeah, and there's no reason that a Canadian citizen or something, if you committed a crime there, couldn't come here and get you in court here
What do you mean?
for something you did there. I mean, what happens if suppose you committed a crime in Mexico?
Yep.
Right. And they try to extradite you to Mexico, and
Yep.
you know, the US says, oh, no, we're not letting them go to Mexico.
Uh-huh.
Well, then at that point, they have the opportunity to come here and present their case, in which case, you know, it's going to go wherever Congress says they're going to try it.
Is that right? I don't know if I've ever heard that.
Yeah. A lot like, well, you can't use the military because they have their own court system, but it's similar to that.
I don't know if I've ever heard of that happening. Is that, do you know that to be right?
I'd have to look it up, but yeah, I do remember it being like where the US said, well, they won't get a fair trial there. We'll try them here. You go ahead and bring your lawyers and your people. And I can't remember what.
Well, now wait a minute. Who was the big drug dealer?
El
Al-
Chapo.
Yeah, but
Chapo.
although we were maintaining some jurisdiction over that because of the amount of drugs that were flowing into the country. So
Right.
it's not like we took him.
But very similarly, you could say, you know, he's not going to get a fair trial in Mexico. He's going to be found not guilty because of the money.
You know what though? I don't know if you have a right to. I mean,
I wonder if they can bring charges on you here in the state if it is a mutual law, like murder.
I don't.
We
think
have
so.
we have a law here against murder.
I don't think so, because I mean, there's jurisdictional issues, right? It's just, I mean, if I was in Michigan and I killed somebody, Ohio can't try me for that crime. They don't have jurisdiction over that crime. Just like here, if the crime actually was committed in Mexico, I don't think the United States has jurisdiction over that crime.
Well, that would be a federal.
But I don't
It
think.
wouldn't be a state.
Although, I mean, we do, well, again, I keep wanting to go back to the drugs, but I think we exert jurisdiction over it because of the amount of drugs coming in from whatever cartel is affecting our citizens. I think that's where they get that. But it's just like a simple murder, or I don't see how you would have jurisdiction, how the United States would have jurisdiction over crime that happened in another country. Doesn't even make any sense to me.
I have this is odd, but I have an aunt who sued Germany for the sinking of the Lusitania because her husband was on it. But that happened in, the paperwork says World Court. So I have no idea exactly where it happened, but it's
Yeah,
kind of a
I mean,
strange.
civil trials, I think you can, you're right, but that's a whole separate,
Yeah.
we're talking about crimes. And
I-
it says trial of all crimes, we're not
So-
talking about civil trials at that point.
There's I was reading up, but federal crimes, so crimes committed on federal lands wouldn't be in that state, right?
Right. That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
No, they would start in that state. Remember, we have federal district courts. They would have to start there.
But
How about a crime on Indian reservation?
All right, now you guys are just being a pain in my head.
Jim, I have a question.
Yeah,
Did you see that post I put up today about the
no,
people in Tennessee and the people in Middleburg Heights that were charged by the federal government?
I did not. Tuesdays are a little rough for me.
Okay, so my question is the people in Tennessee being charged for the crime in Cleveland?
I don't know. I would have to look at the article. I mean, there's no reason why they couldn't be charged.
What
was
about tried? Like the people from Tennessee being tried up here?
For what? I mean, what was the crime?
What happened?
Hold on, I'll post in the chat.
Good, man. You want some more fancy?
Yeah, I mean, I would need to look at that.
And while you're at it, look up extraterritorial jurisdiction.
I'm not going to look that up. Somebody else look that up. I'm afraid right now. Well, only because I'm afraid if I go there, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's just a matter of this window minimizing, but this is the first day I've used this thing, so I don't want to screw with this yet. I'm here. It's working. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to look up anything. So if somebody could look up extra territorial.
Yeah, but that's I'm rereading that.
Terrestrial, what?
It's in
I'll
the
put a
chat.
link in chat.
Extra. I got it.
So I'm rereading that, and where do all crimes in DC go? In Washington DC, what court do all crimes go to? Because it's not a state, so it must go directly to federal court, right?
Or Pennsylvania.
Well, where the hell are DC go?
You're not in Pennsylvania; it's either Virginia or Maryland.
Maryland, yeah.
But you're not in the state; it's federal jurisdiction.
I thought Pennsylvania had the federal court though.
Oh, Philadelphia? I don't know. I thought there was a federal court in DC.
Well, I mean, there has to be, right? I mean, there's federal courts in every state.
DC is not a state. But
Right, but I'm saying, I mean, I think DC would have to have, you're probably right at that point. I don't know. What does it say? Where would they go?
I think it's automatically a federal crime, right?
It goes to the Superior Court.
The Superior Court of the District of Columbia. Here's all local civil and criminal cases in Washington, D.C.
All right, hold on. I'm going to move on here real quick. It's 9:04 and we are almost done. I'm going to be able to get done with this.
Yeah, finish it off. Because right now we're all minutia.
The big part of that, and we're making big parts out of little parts, but the big part of that is juries, right? The framers realized that judges were in fact part of the government. Their concern through while they were writing this was that trial by jury or trial from the judges was giving the government too much power over seizing liberty. That is why they included. Now you can waive your right to a jury trial, but it is a right given to you. Everything with the exception of like minor misdemeanors, traffic. I mean, you're not afforded a jury trial at that point. But any crime, anything that's carrying jail time, you have the right to have a jury trial. And it was added to ensure that defendant's liberty was not lost until the people themselves decided on that outcome instead of an agent of the government.
Makes sense.
Judges are supposed to be unbiased. The fact is they are a member of the government. And their biggest concern there was that the government was going to have too much power into taking your liberty away. So that's why they included the jury. So smart. Anybody? Dave, you got anything? David Davis? You haven't said anything all day. He's sleeping.
Too much shine.
Yeah, that's the problem. I gave David that toasted marshmallow. He's been, every time I talk to him now, he's all slurry and he falls asleep halfway through. So I don't know what the hell. All right. So moving on to section 3, and we can be done with this. Section 3 is pretty easy. Treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless on the testimony of 2 witnesses to the same overt act or in confession in open court. The Congress shall have power to declare the punishment of treason, but no attainder of treason shall work corruption of blood or forfeiture except during the life of the person attained.
Pelosi.
So the very first clause here, the treason against the United States shall consist, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? That is treason. It's only levying war or in adhering to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort. No person shall be convicted of treason unless a testimony of 2 witnesses to the same act or unless they go into open court and they admit to the treasonous activity. So the Supreme Court has ruled that simply meeting and talking about treason is not treason, that you actually have to have the overt act of levying war against the United States or giving aid to our enemies. A lot of these treason trials came up in World War II in the 1940s for people that were helping Japan.
Communist sympathizers.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So it's pretty hard to get a conviction for treason, though. It's got to be an overt act. And then you've got clause 2 in there, which is Congress shall have the power to declare the punishment of treason. No attainder of treason shall work corruption of blood or forfeiture except during the life of the person attained. So what all that means is that they cannot come after your family. If you are found guilty of treason, it is only going to, everything that is levied against you, any punishment is only against you during your life, right? Once you die, they can't seize your family's assets. They can't seize your family's, which is what they did in Great Britain. They would come in and they would seize your family's houses, your family's land. So obviously everything that is, if you are found guilty of treason, and I think treason is up to death, everything is only levied against you. So your family's safe, even though you're a treasonous crazy. So discussion, questions on that? Nothing?
Nope.
I think this went very well, though. I like the presentation.
Yeah? So I
Yeah.
should stick with it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
it was great.
I just, we got to talking and Robin brought it up that, people learn different ways, right? I mean, some people learn by being talked to. Other people just gloss over. I look at some of these videos when I'm talking and they're just like, as I read. And some of this stuff is hard to read. So
Did somebody screenshot that look?
it's recorded. It's recorded. So I would hope that everybody has Constitution, but for those of you that don't, or, whatever, at least having it here on the screen, hopefully. And as I use this thing, I'll get better and I'll figure out the video thing. Worst case scenarios, I guess I have Renee pull it up, but, hopefully I get more infographics, things like that in there to make it a little more interesting. But so first time, I think it went pretty well. I think I'll probably just keep it that way. It's a lot more work, but it makes me work. I can't come into this thing completely unprepared like I have a few times.
So why are you backwards today?
Well, you know what? That's probably because I'm actually coming through Prezi. It's their video. It's not.
Gotcha.
I'm just sharing it to Zoom. Once we come into the post discussion, I should be back. I didn't realize that. So it does put me up backwards, huh?
Yep.
You just gotta have Wayne make you a flag that.
Wayne, is Wayne here? Wayne, I'm gonna need a flag with everything written backwards.
That would be very interesting to do.
That'd be a tough one, I think. Yeah.
A challenge.
How about that?
I usually do stuff upside down, so it might just be a little bit more interesting.
Am I back to the right side?
Yeah, you're good.
Yep.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Just setting. So, all right, cool.
Excellent.
Very good.
All right, we all done?
Is everything here backwards? No, I see everything's good. All right, sweet.
Good.
Yeah, I think we're done. We'll go into the post discussion. I promise there will be no drama.
You don't even get an update on that?
Post discussion.
You know what? I am to the
In the
I'm to the
post.
point
Do the
now.
post.
I'm to the point now that I think it's a family issue and I'm going to handle it internally. I don't think I need to keep airing dirty laundry out here.
Save it for the post. You're still recording.
Well, no, I just answered the question. So, yeah.
Looking out.
Okay, stopping the recording.
Yep. All right, right on. I will see you guys over there in the post. We can talk about it.